everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to this week's weekly recap, where we have pretty much a lot to cover in the women's basketball sphere, and then soccer and volleycats too, I guess. But before we get into any of that, we do want to thank the sponsors of the show, and that is Greg, Arthur, and Grandma.
Thank you,
Grandma. And if you want to have your name read out at the beginning of every single episode and support the show for as little as $1 a month, please be sure to check out the official Aggieville Alleycats supporters link, both found in our podcast and Twitter bios. But let's just dive straight into the women's basketball news. And we'll start off with the new commit, even though there are, there are more pressing needs for this current team, news for this current team, but it's still important to cover the new women's Catsketball members as they come on. So, Connor, this is your field, man. This is what you do.
Yeah. To begin with, not a lot of coverage for this person, but what little we do know is that her name is Gina Garcia. She's originally out of Spain. And that is where most of the information stops. She does compete for some of the Spanish national teams relative to her age group. So this past year, she was in 2 competitions, one of them being the FIBA U17 Women's Basketball World Cup. And in that, she averaged 7 points a game, 5 assists per game, and 3 rebounds. Then she played in the FIBA U18 women's Eurobasket, which is 5.1 points per game, 4 assists per game, and then 2 rebounds a game. She's 5'9", and based on the very few highlights that I was able to find, she is kind of a classic pass-first point guard. That is fairly good at navigating. She looks really smooth when trying to move around a defense. I haven't seen a ton of her passing, but her assist numbers are pretty solid, particularly given that the numbers kind of indicate with like her points per game that she wasn't playing a ton. I don't have minutes per game numbers, unfortunately, but she does seem to be a pass-first point guard, which normally isn't the first pick for me, particularly for some of these K-State women's teams. I'm always looking for shooters and scorers, but I'm going to let it slide for now because Jordan Spicer is probably the top shooter in her class that we just got committed, and then Anaya Foy as well is also a very reliable scorer in her own right. So I think it's completely valid to go out and get somebody that we view as more of a distributor with this next commitment in the class. But overall, I don't really have enough information to say if I like how great I think that she is, other than she, I think, complements our current commitments at least fairly decently. But beyond that, I really can't say too much that isn't just speculation, but the puzzle pieces fit together at the very least, and her numbers for international competition are pretty decent.
Yeah, and I mean, I wonder if having Gisela Sanchez, because they're both from Spain, I wonder if there was a possible connection with like a coach there or something, but
entirely possible. But
who's to say?
No idea. And I don't think Gina Garcia has any social media either, from what I've been able to tell, because the announcement just came from like an international basketball Twitter account. So she may just like not have social media for us to like I don't even think it's possible to ask her. Like, so we'll just have to wait and see if D. Scott Fritchen does like a write up on her at some point if he allows that.
Yeah, but welcome to the family, Gina. But we're not done in the women's Catsketball realm, and we'll start from, I don't want to say bottom to top here, but we'll start off with the first honor to talk about is Serena Sundell being named to the all Big 12 preseason team, which that really shouldn't be surprising because she's been one of the top guards in the Big 12 for quite some time now. I don't think they do preseason. I don't think they do preseason defensive team, but if they do / did, I would be losing my mind because Jalen Glenn is still not on it, and I don't understand how that keeps happening. But yeah, this is the second time that this has actually happened where there have been two members of the All Big 12 team. Last year, it was Gabby Gregory, and this year's preseason Big 12 Player of the Year, Ayoka Lee. And we'll start with the individual player honors first because those are both really, really high honors, obviously. I can't say I was expecting Yoki to be the preseason All Big 12 Player of the Year. Not me saying it's not deserved. I just didn't expect it.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking up and down the preseason All Big 12 team here, and I think the main two competitors for that preseason Player of the Year would have been Audi Crooks at Iowa State and then JJ Quinterly at West Virginia, who I did not realize still had eligibility left, and that makes me a little annoyed because she's really good, and I don't like it when we play her.
Yeah.
But it's a very well-deserved preseason Player of the Year. It's not the first time in K-State history that we've had a preseason Player of the Year. The other two, I think, were Nicole Oldie and Kendra Wecker in consecutive seasons. So it's a pretty high honor for Ayoka Lee to garner, and it's well deserved as well.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The Quinterly and Crooks, I probably would have, if I were to have to guess, I would have probably said Quinterly would have won it. But I mean, I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying Yoki doesn't deserve it. She's 100% 3-point shooter. How could you not put that
exactly
on the All Big 12 preseason?
Yeah, and some of it may also be that I think sometimes preseason Players of the Year, a lot of times they may give it to the best player on who the coaches view as the best team, which kind of leads us, I suppose, into the next bit from the preseason awards.
Yeah, which for the first time, K-State is actually the favorite to win the Big 12 in women's basketball in the preseason, which last year I think we were picked fourth, is somewhere in there, like upper middle of the pack. This just sells the fact that everyone is sort of watching this team very, very closely, and everyone has very high expectations for this team. And they should.
Yeah. We've said it plenty. I mean, this needs to be the year for K-State women's basketball. With how recruiting's going, there may be a reload at some point. I don't think it'll be immediately, but I do think that this season is really gearing up to be a massive year. However, there are going to be some pretty serious competitors, and I think that can be gleaned from just how close the number one ranking was. Only 2 points separate K-State and Iowa State between first and second. K-State, the preseason number one, 7 first place votes, 211 total points in the voting poll for the coaches poll. Then Iowa State right there with 6 first place votes and 209 total points. And then, of course, Baylor, TCU, and West Virginia kind of rounding out that top group before there's a pretty significant drop off to number 6. But I'm honestly a little surprised that Iowa State didn't get picked ahead of us. I was kind of fully expecting Iowa State to be the preseason favorite. But I think that maybe the coaches are putting a lot of stock into the experience that K-State has, because that's the one area where Iowa State doesn't have a much of a fight to put up against K-State is experience. It didn't matter much for them last year because Addie Crooks played like a senior, even though she was just a true freshman.
Oh God.
But
God.
it's a that may be the edge that's being given to K-State. If I had to guess,
Audie Crooks. 3 more years of Audie Crooks. I don't like that very much. Sorry to interrupt you, but that sort of fills me with a sort of dread that I can't quite explain. Because Audie Crooks she's really good. She's annoying. Like, she's the type of annoying good too.
Yeah, I'm definitely not looking forward to facing her, particularly next year when we don't have Aoka Lee. I think that's going to be difficult, to put it lightly. Because, I mean, it was difficult with Aoka Lee to guard Audie Crooks. But, I mean, this is going to be a really exciting season, and I bet it's going to come down to that last game in Hilton. Which that is really not where I want it to come down to, because I have very little faith in our ability to beat Iowa State on the road, and they're historically a team that seems to peak towards the end of the year, whereas K-State's been more of the opposite recently, where they're well, maybe not the complete opposite, but they generally peak, it seems, in that kind of late January area, which we've talked about a little bit before. We'll talk about more on the preview. But regardless, still some really high honors and a lot of respect being given the K-State preseason. But now they need to follow up on it.
Yep. And that'll be the biggest thing, is following up on it. And we're still really excited for the basketball previews. That's not today. That's probably, I don't know, 2 weeks-ish from now, somewhere thereabouts. But yeah, on the Audie Crooks thing, it's a shame that it will be a Monty Lester season and she will be clamping her.
Fingers crossed, man.
Yeah. I feel like I'm still one of the biggest Amani Lester believers left.
I won't say that I'm a Amani Lester atheist, but I'd say I'm leaning towards the agnostic to deist point of the spectrum with Amani Lester. I'll put it like that. I need to see it to believe it, but I'm not out. I'll put it like that.
That's fair enough. All right, so now we can go into the games that have actually been played. We'll start off with soccer. We'll change up the order a little bit. There's only one result to go over. That was a UCF match. This was Bark at the Park not immediately. It was the day after the Oklahoma State game. And K-State actually led through one set, but UCF got their goal in the half. Got theirs in the second half to end up just having it be a not 1-1. And I mean, it's not a bad result. You and I were talking about this before the episode. Not a bad result. Probably one you want to win. And there isn't much in the way of statistical disparity. I mean, 20 shots for K-State, 7 on goal to 11 and 5 for UCF. Yeah, that's a little bit of a disparity, but everything else looks pretty equal, all things considered.
Yeah, I do agree that this is definitely a game that K-State should have won and kind of gave away with that late-ish goal in the 71st minute. This is definitely one that K-State could have won. They had a couple of really great chances late. A few went just over the bar. And then there was another one where K-State had a great shot in the center of the box, and it was just a fantastic save, a fingertip save by UCF. We definitely had some great opportunities and chances in this one. So again, a draw is not the worst thing in the world, but this was a game that once you get up 1-0, like with how soccer's gone in the past for K-State and how this year's been, really would have been better to come away with a win. But you'll still take a point and nobody goes away very happy. But at least you can be annoyed with UCF that nobody was able to win. But yeah, I don't really have much to add to this other than K-State, I thought for a lot of stretches in this one was actually the better team. And I think majority of the game, I think that they were the better team, save for probably like a 10 to 15-minute window where UCF got their goal, where they just were attacking really well. But K-State kind of was the superior team most of the time, I thought.
Yeah. Which that's not something that we're particularly used to saying
Not
with the
at
Soccer
all.
Cats. No.
A step in the right direction at the very least.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what this season has been. Is the team great? No. But they don't look like they don't belong on the pitch, which
Yeah.
is improvement.
Yeah, that's a first, I think, from our time covering the soccer team is for the first time they do look like they belong and like there's hope, I would say, for probably among the first time. There's been isolated moments, but this year that quality has been much more consistent at a level that we haven't really seen before, which is like it's still not great, but it is headed the right way.
Yeah. Which it's weird to think about because there's only 6 matches left in the regular season. I always forget how quickly the soccer season comes and goes.
Yeah, it starts just ridiculously early, which isn't like a bad thing per se, but it just gets started really, really early, and they've got a potentially winnable game coming up here against Iowa State. Iowa State, somewhat similar trajectory of this season compared to K-State. Not a lot of wins. They most recently dropped a game at BYU 3-1. That's a winnable game for K-State, so I'll be pretty curious to see if they're able to pull that one out. But yeah, there's not a lot left on the schedule for K-State. So if they want any sort of outside shot of making it to the Big 12 tournament, you're running out of chances.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that's just the best way to put it. Speaking of running out of chances, we can talk about the Alleycats, which remember when we said that we weren't going to talk about them until they won a set? They responded to that very well by sweeping a not awful UCF team in the morgue, which congratulations. They've won back talking about them privileges. And all of the sets except for one were really close. 25-23, 30-28, and then 25-13. All, of course, in favor of K-State. And, I'm just happy to get back in the win column with this team, really.
Yeah, it was just complete and utter desperation mode, I think, for the Alleycats, particularly those first two. The second set, really. Winning that one 30-28. That was an intense bit of action there. But K-State able to pull it out. Liz Grigorski, she ended up having a really good game. She's kind of become more of an offensive focal point as of late. We've kind of shifted the offense away from Aaliyah Carter and towards Liz Grigorski, and keeping Meg Brown involved too. But Grigorski actually had 14 kills and just 3 errors. Meg Brown, 12 kills, just 2 errors, which helped Aaliyah Carter's efficiency a lot. She had 8 kills and 2 errors on 17 attacking attempts. So a better day for her. And then we saw Ezzy Shulshevsky and Ava LeGrand kind of splitting time as the setter. Ezzy Shulshevsky had 20 setting assists. Ava LeGrand had 13 of her own. So a bit more rotation there than we've seen for most of the season. But it was mainly just nice to finally see another notch in the win column for, despite how rough this season has been. Like, this team is definitely a lot more talented than their record shows, which is probably the most frustrating part of all, is most of those matches against those highly ranked teams that they were playing, um, they were pretty close to getting some of them. They just weren't able to hold on long enough, or they would just drop some pretty close sets. But this is a much needed one, I guess, to prevent a complete unraveling.
Yeah. And, getting that sweep was really important. And then, the bad part is they immediately followed it up with a 3-1 loss down in Lubbock, where Texas Tech picks up the first and second sets, 25-18, 25-21. Then the fourth set, 25-15, where we fought for a little longer than perhaps we expected, but still came up way short. K-State did win the third set pretty convincingly, 25-18. And if I were to sort of boil down the K-State Volleycats experience up to this point, I'd probably just point someone to this game, because it's just defensively, it's just not there. It's just not happening.
No, the defense has been pretty atrocious. I think a lot of the problem is that we haven't been able to find someone who can consistently make the digs that Mackenzie Morris could, because she was just so good on the back line, and she's borderline irreplaceable. And then also last year's team really benefited from having Sydney Bolding, who is now a professional. She was so good in the middle, was able to draw a lot of attention away from some of our other attacking options. But while we have some all right middle blockers and some all right defensive options in the middle, we don't have the same offensive firepower there in the middle that we did last year. So a lot of things are getting focused on Aaliyah Carter, and teams are able to adapt to that really quickly, and then they put together an attack really quick, and we just have really no feasible way of stopping them most of the time. We occasionally string together some defensive stops. Like the coaches will adjust the defense and put them into the best position possible, and then the other team just adjusts. And you can't be everywhere on the court all at once. So that's really frustrating. Not a whole lot of super notable stats. Liz Gorski led the team in kills again with 21. Aaliyah Carter had 16, but had 7 errors. Izzy Shulshevsky and Ava LeGrand, they both played in all 4 sets. They were both pretty active. Izzy with 27 sets and Ava LeGrand with 18. Ella Larkin had 17 digs and had 3 reception errors. And a few more that were just kind of misjudged, I think. Particularly later in this match, we were really struggling with receiving. This was a tough one, because this was a vulnerable Texas Tech team that we definitely could have tried to get the best of, because getting road wins in the Big 12 is going to be tough. But that was probably our best shot at it.
Yeah. The next Volleycats matchup is this Saturday up against Iowa State in the Morgan Family Arena. So K-State football is on bye. Go on and support the Volleycats, because it is still a really fun environment no matter what. But that pretty much wraps up all the actual news. Do you have any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
No, other than just it's been a bit of a disappointing Volleycats slate. Soccer, I think, I can't say it's been disappointing. I think they've been about what we thought, maybe marginally better visually, even though the results aren't necessarily better. But reinforcements are coming with both of the basketball teams geared up to have some big time seasons. And a shout out to whoever's doing the graphic design for the men's basketball team, with all of the 90s graphics that they're doing for like the schedules and stuff. Those have been awesome. So keep doing that.
Yeah. Always looks cool. And of course, the majority of the K-State media team does a really great job to all the sports. But thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdward00.
I am at Connor Baltazar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out both the official Aggieville Alleycats merch store and the supporters link, both found in our podcast and Twitter bio. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe.